if we're not honest about the terrible ways that some companies handle workforce planning and talent management, we're in for a wild ride because some companies they had no business hiring all of those people. Hi, dreamers. Welcome back to the Dreaming Forward podcast. For the past few weeks, we have been discussing resilience. What does it mean for you as an individual? What does it mean for your team? We've talked about what it could mean for you as a woman leader, and we've even talked about some really cool TV shows. But I want to end this series discussing what it means to be resilient as an organization. We have seen so many companies fail, flail, falter, and honestly just crumble over the last, it's hard to believe, but 5 years now. As people are watching what was once considered blue chip companies, greatest examples of business leadership and leaders fall, it has us questioning many things. I think it's a good thing because I think questioning everything can be helpful, but it's also a really scary time in business. So I thought it was fitting to discuss organizational resilience because whether you are looking to exit the company or grow the company or honestly just hold steady, resilience is a key part of that. The first point is that is it business as usual? When you think about what it takes to be resilient, while it does require some flexibility, you do have to have some level of groundedness. If you think about a balloon, if you don't want your balloon to float away, you have to weight it to something. And companies are the same way. What grounds your company? Is there any part of it that you are able to stabilize? And this doesn't just mean the external facing stuff like products and services, it also includes your cultural values. So, what can make employees feel grounded enough to want to stay put? What can make employees feel grounded enough and safe enough to still contribute to the team and contribute to the company? When you don't have an answer to that and you're willing to just blow up everything, it makes it really hard to retain staff. And I get it. I mentioned in the first episode of this season that I had to basically blow up my whole company, let the team go twice, and then try it again. But that honestly wasn't a good feeling. It was a wake-up call for me as a leader that if the most stable thing in my company is going to be me, then I needed to have a workforce and talent acquisition model that could still honor the dignity of the people who work with me and work for me. I have a new model around that. I prefer to do subcontracting and remain as the prime. I love being a solopreneur. That's a good vibe for me because I don't expect myself to stay tied to any one service. I love the fluctuations, but I know how nerve-wracking that can be for other people. So I've restructured my entire hiring and staffing model to fit that. You have to be honest about what that looks like for you. Another aspect I want us to think about as executive leaders is viscosity. Viscosity measures a material's resistance to flow, high viscosity. That means that it is thick and is resistant to being free flowing. If something has low viscosity, that means that it is a thinner substance and is more free flowing. Varying companies, industries, and geographic regions have standards of viscosity. So if you think about consumer goods, it tends to move really fast because consumer spending tends to fluctuate. But if you think about something like car purchases, it takes a little bit longer because it has all types of regulations, manufacturing concerns, etc. You have to understand what is the baseline viscosity for your industry, geographic region, and even in your company's history, and then decide if you want to match and maintain that viscosity. There is a lot that goes into managing viscosity in a company because there is an organizational readiness aspect, there is the staff training and enablement aspect, there is the consideration of people's willingness to change. So sometimes folks don't want to see new stuff happen, and if they don't want to see new stuff happen, they're going to frustrate your plans along the way. So you got to be ready for that. But viscosity is important because if you are low viscosity in a high viscosity industry. You being willing to constantly change and move and be agile might make you too much of a pioneer. And so you have to decide if you're willing to stand out that much. Or is it better to, no pun intended, go with the flow of the industry so that you can stay under the radar a little bit? If you think about tech companies, I think some of them do that. They might just quietly maintain certain key systems or key products while they might secretly come out with something that is really groundbreaking, and then they're willing to step out and be the pioneer. That is a resilience tactic as well. Reductions in force or rifts or layoffs are a part of the business cycle. Now, how frequently you do it, that's going to depend. Some companies lay off once, maybe every 20 years, some lay off once every 20 months. But how you handle separations will make or break your brand, because the employer brand is just as important as a consumer brand, simply because even when someone isn't an employee, they could be a consumer. And even if they're not a direct consumer, they are always in the market because they're in the world, and they can always give an opinion which could reach the ears and hearts and wallets of your consumers. There are some companies where for a long time after I left that company, you could not pay me to even think about them. I was not supporting anything they were doing. I didn't want anything to do with commercials I might have seen. Seeing it in the news, don't even want to hear it. And I was very careful to tell other people about my terrible experience too. You don't want that. That's a dangerous position to be in because, again, people talk. And there are some companies now that are having a hard time with hiring women, Black and brown folks, disabled folks, in some cases, veterans, people from marginalized or underrepresented groups. They don't want to come work there. And if they do, they're in and out quick because that company has a horrible reputation for the way that they treat people and the way that they even treat people on the way out the door. How you separate, that is a part of organizational resilience because you won't always be looking to offload headcount. Sometimes you're going to want to bring people in. And if you flubbed up your employer brand so bad that people don't want to come work for you, no matter how much you pay them, no matter how many perks you have, no matter how popular you are, no matter what your stock price is, that's a bad sign. And that's not a sustainable business model. When you think about smart scaling and talent planning, so many companies rushed to hire folks. And I mean, it was just booming in the pandemic. And yes, these were unprecedented times. I know that phrase is so overused at this point. Yes, it's unprecedented times, and everybody thought, okay, we're just going to be working from home forever. But some of that was like, okay, you're just doing too much. And so then when we see companies that hire thousands of people with all of these overinflated salaries, not because people didn't deserve the money, but because that was just poor compensation planning to think that we're going to always make this amount of money. And then you laying off people in 4 or 5 rounds over the course of 18 months. It's just bad workforce planning. It's bad talent management. If we're not honest about the terrible ways that some companies handle workforce planning and talent management, we're in for a wild ride in business over the next decades, for sure. Because some companies, they had no business hiring all of those people. They had no business hiring all those people. They had no business expanding and scaling that fast. They had no business, especially bringing on permanent staff. This is where, now I got to get on my HR leaders. This is the danger of lacking strategic HR competence. Even in my own career, when I think about a lot of the HR leaders, it wasn't that they knew what they were doing at the executive level. It was that they were the last person standing. Some person quit or retired. All right, so you up next because we don't want to bring in somebody external. They didn't learn any new skills. They didn't have any particular competence in the new tasks that were needed for that type of leadership. They struggled to execute on strategic projects and strategic priorities. And this is the result of that. That whoever this is that is afraid to push back on a CEO, hire 1,000 people. Where's the HR leader that's going to say, no, don't do that? And I've had to tell some of my clients that. But if you're talking to me about org development, workforce planning, I've told people straight up, why are you saying you need to hire like 10 people? That's a lot for y'all. That seems weird. Oh, we want to hire like 8. How many people y'all got? 80. You're trying to grow your workforce by 10%? Well, we got 30% of new business. But that's just for this year. No, it's 2-year. That's just for 2 years. Let's try again. Maybe bring on like 4 people and see how they work out. Why do I push back like that? Simple. Because people are on the other side of these business decisions. And that's the final and most important point of organizational resilience. When you lose your focus on humanity in your company, there is no way that you will sustain yourself. When you lose sight of the fact that humans work in your company, humans are the main purveyors of your company's product or service. Humans are impacted by your company's presence in their community. Humans are impacted by the way you produce, the way you market, the way you sell, the way you evaluate, the way you lobby. It's humans. When we're so focused on numbers and slashing head count and pushing people out the door and saving a few bucks here and bumping up the stock price artificially, by the way, that's not a sustainable model, because it's people who make your company run. Dare I say, way more people at the bottom than at the top. You trying to pacify the top at the expense of the bottom, you're going to have a hard time. A lot of companies are finding that out the hard way. What does resilience mean to you for an organization? If you are the person who unfortunately has lost your role, share in the comments what is the human side that was missed during that process. If you are the person who had to make these decisions, what is the human element that you considered when you made those decisions? Share below in the comments. And of course, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And I will catch you on the next episode. Bye, Dream.